Welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, a podcast for wine lovers around the globe. We are the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm Mary Babbitt.
And I'm Mary Orland. And speaking of wine lovers around the globe, we are traveling to Brazil today. We have a special guest with us. We're super excited to introduce you all to Lucas Foppa of Tenuta, Foppa e Ambrosi winery. And I met Lucas when we were invited by Apex Brazil to join a small group of wine journalists to introduce us to the winemaking in Brazil, to the wine country, and to all the incredible people and all the exciting things happening within that country.
I had to miss the trip at the last minute. Sip Sip Hooray got invited to go discover Brazilian wine, which I was so excited because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even know they made wine in Brazil. So I'd never tasted a Brazilian wine. And this whole thing sounded so enchanting and interesting to me. And then at the very last minute, I had to miss the trip. But Mary Orland went along and had a terrific time.
Right. And, I learned so much, and I'm so excited to share it with all of our listeners. We have done one other episode with a wine educator, Mauricio Roloff, and we did a Brazil Wines 101. So after you've listened to this, or before you listen to this, if you want to stop and go find this episode too, then we encourage you to find the recording. It's on our Instagram. It's on our website, sipsiphooraypodcast.com. But we're super excited to have Lucas Foppa join us all the way from Brazil in the middle of harvest.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time out, Lucas. How are you?
Hello, girls. It's a giant pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for your invitation. And I am very excited to share with your audience about our young winery.
Yeah, it is young, but you are busy. So it's harvest time there. Help our listeners who've never been to the Brazilian wine country. Can you set the scene for us? Tell us what it's like there. Where are you and how close are you to a major city? And how would someone get to the Brazilian wine country?
Great. First of all, a very important thing to say is that we speak Portuguese. So first of all, sorry for my poor English. I will try to make myself very clear.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
It's better than my Portuguese, believe me. And I'm part Portuguese. So
everybody says that. But talking about our wine country. So we are in the extreme south of Brazil. We are very close to Uruguay and Argentina. As far as I know, when we say we are from Brazil, people we remember about Rio de Janeiro, beach, sun. It's always summer.
Yeah.
But in our state, how we are very south, we have the 4 seasons. So we have also cold season, winter, spring, fall, summer. So this makes our region very good for vine growing. And then we are almost 2 hours far from plane to São Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. It's almost 1,000 kilometers from São Paulo and 1,500 more or less from Rio de Janeiro. And as you guys can imagine, Brazil is very big. So from the south to the north, it's almost the size of US from East Coast to West Coast.
Wow.
So we are creating a lot of terroirs, new terroirs for vine growing. We are probably one of the first countries to cultivate vines in tropical climate zone. But in our region, we are very similar to Vinho Verde region in Portugal. We are a very dark green region and with a lot of mountains. So very different from, for example, the Napa Valley that is flat in the center. If you correct me if I am wrong, but
you are correct.
Flat in the center, and you have two sides of mountains. Here you have a lot of mountains, so the topography of our region is very different. And well, it's a very beautiful region of an early Italian immigration. So the buildings and the architecture is very connected to the north part of Italy.
Okay.
Right. And you're right. My impression was it was so verdant and lush and green with rolling hills and mountains. I didn't quite expect that. And, speaking to the tropical climate, lots of palm trees too.
Mm-hmm. Our region, you will see a few palms and stuff, but in our zone, you can also enjoy a very beautiful vineyard area. But of course, it's not that, how can I say, flat view as you guys have, for example, in Napa, when you cross Silverado Trail or I think it's 29, right? 29.
Right. Highway 29. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
It's quite a different view, but it's also beautiful.
Yeah. Correct.
Well, we're going to get into the fact that the reason why you know the Napa Valley as well as you do a little bit later. But first, I wanted to mention you guys are in the middle of harvest right now. Tell me what's going on at the winery.
Yes, actually, in our region, we pick up the grapes a little bit earlier than our neighbors, Argentina and Chile, for example, because we have a humid region. So we work with early cycle grapes. We just did the pickup of Sauvignon Blanc from a region 600 kilometers from here, from Serra Gaúcha, that is northeast of Rio Grande do Sul state, that is the last state of the country. And then we are waiting for the red to be picked up.
Great. But you mentioned you're a young winery, so you were young when you came into wine. How did you even get interested in it, and what was your path to wine?
Well, different from our colleagues here around that are Italian immigration descendant of winemakers and wineries. Me and Ricardo Ambrosi, my business partner, we are also Italian immigration descendants, but our families didn't cultivate vines or produce wine. So I get in touch with the wine when studying Spanish classes, because my mom is English teacher. She has a language school here in Garibaldi, our town. And then my teacher is from Valencia in Spain, and she came to Brazil to run a winery with her husband. And she was totally connected to wine world, and she loved wine. And I also had a colleague in class that he was winemaker and son of a winemaker. So imagine I was in the middle of a brainwash with wine world and wine passion. And I, as you and your audience, we fall in love to wine world. And then I decided very early in my life, when I was 13 years old, that I would study wine in the wine school here in Bento Gonçalves. Bento Gonçalves is the main town talking about wine industry in Brazil. And I went there to study high school, and I studied high school during the morning, and in the evening we did the technical course of viticulture and enology. That is it's kind of a level that we have here in Brazil to this matter.
That's
Now, wait.
amazing. So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm
Mary.
sorry. No, wait a minute. You're saying that when you were 13, you were in high school and you were studying winemaking?
Yes, I did.
That would not happen here in the United States.
Yeah, no.
Yes, it's quite different because, as I know, in US, you guys are very careful when we speak about alcohol. The same thing happens in Brazil, but here you are not underage anymore when you are 18, such as in Europe, for example. But during our course, the teachers were very focused on theory and also, how can I say, agronomic factors to teach us about the wine. Yes, we did wine tastings, but we were very careful about swallow. So you never see people underage drunk during the course. But how can I say, this course is very hard to get in because it's paid by the government. So you need to do a test and you compete with other, in my year, I did this test in 2009. I competed with another almost 200 people, and we had just 30 places to this course. So everybody takes it very seriously. Even if you are very young, you understand the importance to be there.
Wow. I think it's fascinating that you were able to start that young and that you liked it and you continued with it. So you found, okay, this is actually the correct path for me. And then in high school, when you're not even 18 years old, you met your future wine partner. Tell me about that part of it.
Yes, it's quite hard when you are so young to decide what you are going to do for the rest of your life. But I mean, when I started to work actually with wine, and I started in a winery here called Cave de Pedra. Cave de Pedra, for American people to be able to understand better without coming here, it's a kind of a winery such as Castelo de Amorosa. It's a very beautiful place and very touristic. And then I actually became friend of Ricardo, my business partner, there because we worked together. And once you are presenting people and visitors about the wine, the winery, the wine story, it's impossible to do not be even further fall in love with the wine, So I think I had this decision in my life so early because I got in touch with this wine industry very early.
Well, and then when you were all out, you and Ricardo started making wine in his family's basement, right?
Right. Yes, that came when we were just finishing the graduation. So we were not more in the high school and technical course. We were in university studying wine. So we were studying wine even further. And once we did it, we decided that we needed to have the experience about make wine with our own knowledge. So we were just checking out if we learned something for real, and if we really could do that without a very experienced winemaker, a boss.
Mm-hmm.
So me, Ricardo, and a friend of us, Pietra. Pietra nowadays, she's winemaker in Peru. And we bought some grapes. We took these grapes to Ricardo's basement, and by our hands and some buckets, we could make the vinification process of almost 60 kilos of Marcelin grape. This is the reason I send you, girls, Marcelin wine.
Okay, great. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But so from there, then the way you know about Napa Valley is you and Ricardo went to Napa Valley to work at, I think, a winery that many of our listeners will recognize. So tell me how that came about and where you worked.
Yes. And how old were you when you guys left for California to go work a harvest or something?
Perfect. So when we were in the basement making wine, me, Ricardo, and Pietra, we saw that we could do that. But I was just coming from an interesting experience in Cadiz, that is in south of Spain. I worked with old world style of winemaking with small production in Cadiz University.
Okay.
And I was already, now I'm going to say something that I never told anyone, but I knew that we could do that. I know that we could produce wine by our hands in a good way, and that the wine would be drinkable. That I knew. But it was amazing to see Ricardo and Pietra also seeing that. And I told them, we must produce more wine, because these 60 kilos, that would just for playing, for testing, for trial. And then I asked them about, let's produce more. Let's produce like 600 kilos of grape and make wine with these grapes. And then Ricardo was so excited to do that as soon as he saw we could do that. But Pietra was with a very big opportunity in her hands. That was Peru opportunity. And thanks God she did that, because she is still making wine over there. She's very good over there. She runs Bodega Murga, that is a very interesting winery from Peru country. And then me and Ricardo, we produced these 600 grapes, and we bottled all. And meanwhile, we had a Cabernet Sauvignon wine tasting from Napa Valley. So we had a colleague, a winemaker called Wagner. He worked for Hombauer in 2016, and he brought with him some wines from Napa, some Cabernet.
Okay.
And me and Ricardo, we were very excited to taste this Cabernet Sauvignon, because we had just crushed our first 600 kilos of Cabernet.
Lucas, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but just for our listeners, what's the equivalent of that in U.S. Cases or bottles?
6. Let me calculate. Because you guys use 12 bottles cases, right?
Right.
The metric system never really stuck with us Americans. I don't know why.
It's 25 cases of 12 bottles. So very few quantity. And then once we were tasting the Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon, we were like discovering gold. So,
Wow.
for me, Napa Valley Cabernet Sauvignon is the top of the world. But once I taste that, me and Ricardo, we were like crazy guys saying we must go there, we must learn with them. So when the tasting was over, I asked Wagner, the winemaker, a Brazilian winemaker that came from Napa with those wines, sorry. And then I asked him how you did that, how you could work in Napa Valley, how did you got in touch with Rombauer, that is this winery, and he taught us how to do that. And me and Ricardo, we could had the opportunity to work for Rombauer in the same year. The same year we started in the basement. So
And
2017.
2017.
Sorry.
Okay, so just a few years ago. So you teenagers leave Brazil in 2017 to go work at Rombauer. Tell me what you thought of, what was your impression of the Napa Valley and that experience? I'm guessing your eyes were pretty like, wowza, right?
Yes, right. We watched, I think, 1,000 times the Bottle Shock movie.
Oh, really?
So imagine the first thing we did, we pick up when we arrived in Rombauer intern's house, we picked up the bikes and we went riding to Chateau Montelina.
Of course you did.
So we were just, wow, my God, we are actually here. As I told you before, I just had the opportunity to work in Spain. I traveled France. That was amazing. I worked for Moet Hennessy before, and I got in touch with some top brands of Europe. But I mean, to be in a so important wine region from the New World was great, because I think even if we have here a very let's say young Italian immigration story, we are New World also. So being there was amazing to get some new experience with something similar to what we have. So being there was almost unbelievable. Me and Ricardo, we always woke up during the morning, and we were like beating ourselves and asking, are we dreaming or not? But I mean, working in Napa was the main factor to be here with you today talking about our story.
I love that. Okay, so tell me, how did it inform? So you stayed for a harvest and then went back to Brazil. How did your experience in California inform what you're doing today? So it motivated you. You're like, okay, we know we want to do this. Wow, we're even more in love with wine than we were before. Is there anything not too technical that you could tell me that, you learned from that experience that you put into your own winemaking?
Mary, I think the main thing that I learned in Napa, it's very far from technical thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Rombauer family or Rombauer staff, but Rombauer family taught me how to be more human, how to live this world in a healthy way, making friends, respecting people, cultures, different cultures, and doing a really fair trade way in this wine world. You know what I mean? Like
really?
Rombauer, I don't know if people know that, but Rombauer family, Rombauer staff, they are just amazing people. They are amazing human beings. I mean, the wine is perfect. It's great. It's one of the best I tasted in Napa Valley. But we faced a fire in 2017,
Yes,
as you guys
did.
remember.
Right.
And you should be there to see how they deal with that. This is something that I carry with me. I will carry with me forever. I mean, the way I deal with my people here in the winery, people who work for us, it's totally inspired in Rombauer staff way to deal with people. So the main thing I learned in Napa Valley is this, is to be a better human being, to be really, and in how can I say in English? They are just great people.
I love
and
that.
they produce great wines because they are great people.
Well,
so I try to be a little bit like they are to produce good wines here.
That's fantastic. And many of our listeners are probably big fans of Rombauer. Rombauer is very popular here. But I want to go back a little bit. So what was it like for you and Ricardo to be there and these horrific fires break out? I mean, what was it like? What did you do?
Well, for us was a very different situation because we live in a humid region, so we never saw fire like that. We never imagined to be in this kind of situation. We were sleeping, and then our ex-boss, and nowadays he's our business partner and friend, Alberto Mendoza, and he get in our room. Me and Ricardo, we shared the room in intern's house, and she got in the room shouting like, "Fire, you must leave." And here in our region, we have a very strong work culture. So people work a lot in here. And when I was sleeping and dreaming in Portuguese in my mind, and he got in shouting in English and Spanish, I got a few seconds to understand what was happening. And I thought like, my God, I am late to go to the work. And my boss came to pick up, how can I say, to take us to the winery.
Right.
And
Yes.
I woke up shouting to Ricardo, "Get up, we are late, get up." And
Oh no.
Alberto said like, "No, man, we are in the middle of a big fire. We must evacuate." And I was like, "What? What are you saying? Where fire? I mean, fire in the house, fire in some tree?" And he said like, "Fire everywhere." And then I really woke up. I put everything in my backpack, and I left with Ricardo and our colleagues to Napa downtown unit of Rombauer that was very far from the fire. Luckily, that year, this area where we got the intern's house, the fire couldn't reach there. Unhappily, in the 2020 fire, that area was almost completely destroyed, unhappily. But that year we had the opportunity to get out, and even though if we didn't, the fire didn't reach that area. But I mean, they didn't wait till the fire gets bad to remove everybody. And we were in the middle of the harvest, and you know how things are during harvest. Like
Absolutely.
You can live that way for no reason. So they didn't care about the harvest. They was taking care of us.
Sure, because you're in the middle of fermentations. You've got all this stuff going on.
Exactly.
You have grapes
exactly.
grapes that are ready to be picked. I covered the fires for the San Jose Mercury News in 2017, and it was just unbelievable. But I don't. You probably saw this, that how the community came together to help each other out.
hmm And then, I mean, it's a terrible situation at all. I don't want to live that again anymore, and I don't want anybody live that terrible experience. But I mean, they did everything they could to protect us. This was amazing, just
people
amazing.
First, right? And that's how it should be.
People first.
People should come first.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, we should move on to what you're up to today in terms of your winery. And you sent us some delicious wines, and I'm going to pour myself some Brut Rosé you sent.
Me too. And let's do a little celebration now. You came through fire.
Let's drink to that.
You opened a winery, and so let's get on to the good part of the story.
That's like a Phoenix story. So
exactly.
And I'm going to do a little cheers to that.
Yeah. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers.
So I want to say that if I read this correctly, you went from launching in 2017 to making 45,000 bottles under 20 different labels in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And in 2022, we could produce 60,000 bottles.
Wow.
So it grew up even more.
So that's that's about 5,000 cases.
It's huge.
Yes, around that.
Yeah,
yes. It's still few quantity. It's a small production. But I mean, if you look back, you will see a 6 years story with this growth. So it's quite impressive, I would say.
All right. Will you tell us about the Brut Rosé we're drinking? It's delicious, first of all.
Yes. Brazil, for people around the world, it's not famous for wine production, but who already listen about Brazilian wine industry will listen very interesting things about our sparkling. So this is the reason I sent you a bottle of Viticcio Brut Rosé. Viticcio, it's the Italian word for tendril. Tendril is a part of the vine that holds the vineyard stand up on the wires.
Nice.
And we choose this name, Tendril, Viticcio, to celebrate how important is sparkling wine to make the wineries stand up, financially talking about, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So it's beautiful. It's this really, it's a pale salmon pink, and it has incredibly, beautiful tiny bubbles. And I get lots of strawberry and plum on the nose. It's really, really pretty.
And very fresh tasting.
Very fresh. That's it. And I think, Lucas, you know better than I, but I think freshness is a hallmark of the sparklings coming from Brazil.
You are totally right, Mary, because different from another regions, good regions in sparkling wine production, we can develop a very fresh and I would say smooth sparkling wine. They are very delicate and elegant sparkling, and we use in our industry mainly 3 grapes that are Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Welsh Riesling, or how we call it here, Riesling Italico, translating Italic Riesling. This sparkling you are tasting, the rosé edition of Viticio, we try to do not macerate too much with Pinot Noir skins. So this is the reason, as Mary said, the color is pale salmon color, very inspired in Provence style.
Okay.
And we use Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, 60% Pinot Noir, mainly direct press Pinot Noir, white vinification style with a little bit of a red Pinot Noir, and to give the color, and 40% Chardonnay, 6 months aged through long-term Charmat method. It's a Charmat such as Prosecco, but we keep the yeast inside for 6 months inside of the tank, shaking, such as batonnage process.
Okay, and I'll just explain for our listeners. So there's several methods to make sparkling wine. One is the champagne method, where the secondary fermentation takes place in each individual bottle. But then there's the tank or Charmat method that Lucas referred to, that you may be very familiar with it in Prosecco, where a larger quantity of wine is in a highly pressurized tank. That's where the yeasts are introduced to start the second fermentation, which is the one that produces the bubbles from the carbon dioxide. And there's yeast, yeast is also collecting at the bottom of the tank. The yeast is what gives this wine and others that are made with the long Charmat. As Lucas said, you leave the wine in contact with those dead yeast cells, which you may have heard of, called the lees. And that is what makes this type of wine creamy, which I really love. Mm-hmm. Did I get that right, Lucas?
Yes, it's perfect.
Well, I'm just going to say, from a layman's perspective, let's just call it delicious. And I love that the bubbles are soft but persistent, because I originally opened this bottle on Saturday, and I poured myself another glass 2 days later, and it still has bubbles. And I didn't use any fancy thing to keep the bottle shut. I just stuck an old cork in, and my bubbles are still there, and they're delicious.
That's, and how can I say, it's a good thing in Charmat method. You bottle the sparkling wine in an isobarometric bottling line machine. So you do not have that stage of freeze the top of the bottle to take out the yeast. And in this method, you can work to avoid lose carbonic dioxide, I think is in English, the CO2.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You can, how can I say, do this process with the bottle very cold, so you avoid to lose this gas. Mm-hmm. But once you are bottling Charmat method process, you have very technological machines that even more protect the CO2 to do not get out of the liquid, Oh,
that's interesting. Cool. Well, before we move on from sparkling, I just wanted to point this out. So, Lucas, you're probably familiar with, and many of our listeners may be familiar with Stephen Spurrier. And since you mentioned that you and Ricardo went to pay homage to Chateau Montelena was the Chardonnay that won the Paris tasting in 1976.
Nice, Mare. Good callback.
And that tasting was organized by Stephen Spurrier, who has become, he passed away last year or year before. I can't quite remember. Sorry about that. But, he was one of the leading wine authorities in the world. Mm-hmm. But he came to visit Brazil in 2013, which I believe was the 100-year anniversary of sparkling wine being made in Brazil. Mm. But he loved Brazil's wines, and he had a famous quote saying that you don't need to drink champagne because you have your own very good sparkling, the best sparkling in South America. And he went on to say that Brazil makes the best sparkling wine in the Southern Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
High praise.
This quote was very helpful for us and helps a lot Brazilian people to respect even more what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, if you could just describe your winery, the building you're in, I thought that was really interesting, and what the experience is like for people who come visit. Because you guys rolled out the red carpet for us, which was super nice, and we had a fabulous tasting paired with exquisite, wonderful local food.
Mm-hmm. So our facilities are in Garibaldi, in the part of Vale dos Vinhedos. It's like translating Vineyard Valley. That is it's like our AVA, as you guys named it, or appellation. It's the first and most famous appellation in Brazil. And in our facilities, you will find a 120 years old stone house, which is the entrance of the winery and the shop. In this house's basement, you will visit our barrel room. And we did this tasting in our new space. We have a big room where in front of some beautiful trees and garden, you will taste our wines. We have multiple options of tastings, which more or less wine labels. And we have a very, how can I say in English, careful team that are very happy to receive everybody that wants to visit Brazil wine region. And that day, Mary came here. We prepared a special lunch that we can prepare also for some groups. You can get in touch with us and we can book some experience like that. Who did this lunch was a chef called Luan Damiano. He's from Minas Gerais and he's a gastronomy teacher. And he prepared a very nice Brazilian cuisine lunch that we can pair with all our wines. That day was great. I want to repeat that.
I know, me too. It was fantastic.
Well, we have another lovely
yes,
wine.
We do. Yes.
And this was really curious for me because I had never tried this varietal before. It's called Marcelin. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are. Marcelin. Okay. That's correct.
The first thing I noticed about it is when I poured it, I'm going to pour another glass right now. But when I poured it, I was blown away by the color. Oh. It's like purple. It is so dark.
It is. It
is really like a really cool dark purple red. I love it.
Yeah. And when you swirl it in the glass, it has almost this ultraviolet character. And it stains the glass. It's like really inky, but you almost have a ultraviolet purple glass once you start swirling it.
So tell us about this wine and what foods you eat with it and what are the flavor characteristics of a Marcelin?
Well, another nice thing to mention is about the harvest, the vintage. So this is a 2022 vintage. And this is the reason the color is so bright and deep. We want to show people in this Tranado wine family. The name of this wine is Tranado. That means between, now the word in English I forgot, but it's a part of the plant that when you cut it, you will see a phenomenon called the vineyard crying. what is the name of the blood of the vine?
Oh, the sap?
So
Is it the
yes,
sap?
I like the
the
blood
sap.
of the
That's
vine.
right.
I do too, yeah.
Yeah. I think you guys can change the name in English for the blood, the vine's blood. I think it's nicer.
Yeah, I like that.
It's
That's
a
good.
really dark wine. The blood of the vine
I
sounds
know.
about right.
Yes. And
Yeah.
we choose this name because as this part of the vine takes this blood vine to the glass, this wine will help people to know how Tenuta starts the wine family. So is our main line today, the line where we sell to a lot of restaurants and hotels here around. And also we are trying to send the first shipping to America of this wine. And then we concentrated a lot. So we took some some juice out of the tank and we concentrated. So we left few juice with a lot of skins during the process. This is the reason the color is so deep. And then you can feel good and strong tannin, mainly because we want this wine to pair with beef.
Yes.
The fat will pair very well with this wine. I don't know if your experience with Brazilian barbecue, have you ever tasted Brazilian barbecue, girls?
Yes, I have. It's delicious.
Yes, and we went to a churrasco when we were on this trip in Brazil, and I mean they just keep bringing out the grilled beef, nonstop. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's unstoppable meal. And then this cuisine is typical from our state. So Rio Grande do Sul is the creator of Brazilian barbecue style. And then this is the reason you guys have in the entrance of Napa Valley a restaurant called Galpão Gaúcho.
Oh, right. That's new. Yeah, it's new.
Yes, that's new. And Gaúcho is the word to describe who were born in Rio Grande do Sul state. So this wine was planned to be a good wine to pair with this cuisine.
Well, since you brought up Napa again, you also have another wine project where you're making wine in Napa. Tell us about this.
Exactly. Tenuta Foppa Ambrosi has 2 units. So the first is here in Brazil, where you visited, in Garibaldi, Tenuta Foppa Ambrosi, Brazil. And in 2021, we opened Tenuta Foppa Ambrosi Wines in Calistoga. And we started to crush grapes from Cumsville, AVA. And we started with Syrah that was bottled a few days after you came here. And we are planning to release our first American wine in the second semester of this year.
Terrific.
Why did you also want to make wine in Napa under a commercial label?
Our story is so connected to Napa. And this is something that was for us like a dream. And this dream came true when our ex-boss, Alberto Mendoza, called us and invited us to do what we were doing in Brazil that impressed him, also in America. And I think he did that almost for joking, but I took it so serious. And then we found another crazy guy, Brazilian guy, called Miguel. Miguel lives in Texas, the Woodlands. And Miguel is a wine lover as well. And he was impressed also with Tenuta, Foppa, Ambrosi Brazil. And he wanted to be our business partner here in Brazil. But we were not prepared for having another business partners because we are just beginning the process. And well, we decided to take this idea to open a winery in Napa to him, and we connected him with Alberto Mendoza. Alberto is still the cellar master of Rombauer, and we took this dream to make it real. And then it's like a dream to be producing wine in Brazil, but to be very honest, it's even more fantastic to be producing wine in Napa. It's unbelievable, actually.
I love that. Okay, which leads me to, as we get ready to wrap this up, tell me where people can find your wines in the U.S. How do we get these great wines? And I'm guessing that Napa Connection will keep your wines available to the American market.
We are nowadays preparing our first big shipping to America, because we could got the importer license in our operation in Napa. So people will be able to buy our wines directly from us soon. And also we are looking for partners to help us to distribute in America, because it's a huge country. It's important to have a lot of partners to help you to get this wine easier to other people's glasses. And then now we recommend to get in touch with us through our Instagram page, that is TFA Wines all together. And over there, we can help people to get our wine.
Fantastic. And if any distributors are listening, or if you're listening and you know distributors, put them in touch with Lucas.
Yes.
And
and
I will put all the contact information as well as the wines we tasted on the show page on our website, sipsiphooraypodcast.com.
So Lucas Foppa, thank you so much. What a fun conversation. And I think your English is outstanding. And it's probably trumped only by your wine, which is just absolutely delicious. Thank you for sharing the wine with us and your story. And, you know, you touched me when you said what you learned in Napa is that the most important thing is the people. And what you took away from that Rombauer experience is caring for the people who work for you and the people who are in your community. And I just love that spirit, and it makes me love your wine all the more. So thank you, Lucas.
I really appreciate to be with you today. Thank you for the invitation to be here. It was a fantastic moment, and I hope we can repeat this here in Brazil and also in America, toasting some glasses.
We would love that. And how do we toast in Portuguese? What do we say?
Saúde or Chin Chin.
To both of that, to you and to Ricardo, and what you guys have done together is just really fantastic. And we're so happy to share your story.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Saúde.
Saúde.
Sip, sip, hooray, Lucas. Thanks again, and take care.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Well, Mary B., I feel like I've been to Brazil once again. I know you haven't been there physically, but virtually, I hope you feel like you've been there.
I sure do. And what a charming and kind person Lucas Foppa is. And he's so young, and they've done so much so quickly. It's really impressive. And I just love his entrepreneurial spirit. He is keeping that connection with California alive, and he wants Americans to be able to enjoy his wine. And mark my words, he's going to make it happen.
Which is great because, there's not a lot of Brazilian wines available in this market. So he and Ricardo did a smart thing by getting their import license so they can bring in their wines themselves and kind of, control that. So I just wanted to, one thing I wish we had talked to Lucas about, but I'll do real quick, is that, to sell their first bottles of wine in Brazil, they did it on WhatsApp. And that's how they got the word out. So, as you said, Mary B., an entrepreneurial spirit, they're young at heart, but they're just doing tremendous things. And I think their future is super, super bright.
Absolutely. And we mentioned this before in our last podcast about Brazilian wines. The price points are really attractive. Yeah. The quality of wine and for kind of what we would consider bargain prices, it's very fun and adds to the refreshment of your brut rosés or whatever else you're drinking.
And I think it also helps people discover it because, you're not feeling like, oh, I have to spend a lot of money to try this. I may or may not like it. You can experiment without a big financial investment.
That's a super good point. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Sip Sip Hooray podcast. We hope you enjoyed yourself. And if you did, we hope you share it with your friends. Tell them about Sip Sip Hooray podcast. Rate us, give us a comment if you like what we're doing, because that sure helps us continue to do this.
And I will be posting all the information so you can get in touch and follow Lucas on their Instagram and see what they're up to. And I'll list the wines that we tasted that are going to be available very soon in this country. And so that's going to be at sipsiphoooraypodcast.com. You can follow us on social, on Facebook and Instagram, Sip Sip Hooray Podcast. We are on Twitter at Sip Sip Hooray, the number 1. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And I'll also post a link to our previous episode on Brazilian wine, so you can go back and check that out too. But thanks for listening. Until the next episode, which will be super fun too.
All right, Mary Orlin, cheers to you and Sip Sip Hooray.
Sip Sip Hooray.